and rest
Yes.
all the chapters are small ones. Okay, that's very. Let me see. What can we do then? We have this month, right? 1st October, right?
Yes, because I need some time to revise also.
Okay, so can you do one thing?
Yes, sir.
Arpit, you can you also join? So you continue with your batch. We'll study evolution here, chapter 7. And I'm going to start chapter 8 in another batch, which you can join on Monday and Wednesday. Will it work for you?
So what are the timings?
The timings are, where are you currently? In India or outside?
India, sir.
Okay, so IST it's 7:30 to 9.
So I have my chemistry class from 6:30 to 8.
Oh,
So after 8:30 I have till 11 I have physics.
Physics.
Yes, sir.
Because that is one thing we could have done. So what we can do one more thing. So those classes will be recorded and will be put on. So you can then go and look at their links.
So is there any scope of live class? Because that's better.
Any scope of?
Any live class like which you are doing the chapter, I mean.
Yeah, so that's a live class, 7:30 to 9, where I'm teaching your chapter. But that's clashing with your other classes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that's why you have to then resort to recorded classes. Okay, I think that will work for you better, because live classes is clashing, so there's nothing much we can do then. Anyone else whose exam is in September or October and the syllabus is vast? Fatima and no one else. Okay, so it's you. Even if I speed up, the point is, see, there's no point of speeding up, because ultimately I have to prepare you for entrances as well, right? So even if I speed up, I don't think I will be able to tell you certain concepts that are required for you to know to do good in entrances. For boards and schools, it can be done in 1 month. I have taught in 2 months all the 16 chapters as a crash course, but that's just on our rapid fast revision mode. But that doesn't work in a normal class. So I think this is what we can do, Arpit. Okay, the best. What chapter is going on in your school right now?
Sir, 15th.
Wow, nice. So they're not going to teach you for the rest of the year? They'll finish in September or October and then holidays?
So because we didn't started with the practicals thing. So we are going to start after the syllabus. So we are going to
they're first finishing the theory and then the practical. They should have taken it simultaneously, right? Like according to me, like I prefer whatever theory you are teaching, you should also teach some practical aspects of that to the kids. But anyways, so you have done it in your school. You can revise. What I can offer you is 3 things. The live class, though it's clashing with your schedule. So after that, what I can give you is the recorded lectures. And if you have any doubts regarding any chapter, so you can bring it to whatever class and whatever topic I'm teaching. You can just bring up all those doubts. Okay.
You don't have any other class in which the same chapter is going?
No, in other batches, in another batch, chapter 7 is going on. Like it's at the same pace as your batches. The batch which is ahead is on Wednesday, Monday and Wednesday, 7:30 to 9. Okay. Another I don't have any other possibility for you in that case. You can also do, if you want your doubts to be cleared, you can join the Monday Wednesday class between 8 and 8:30, and you can at least get to know something, so certain things that I'm teaching, if you want to do that, because 8:30 again you have a physics class, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it's very tight actually. but that's all we can do then, Arpit. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, very well. So quickly, let's start with a quick summary. Who's ready to give a quick summary? How about Samira? Samira, are you there? You
Yes,
did
sir.
speak. Yes. Let's start with a summary. And I hope you all are convinced by whatever we studied till now. So give a summary in the same way. If you have any doubts, please bring it up. Okay. Yes, Samira, over to you.
So in the last class, we discussed about the theory of biogenesis, which was proposed by Operan and Helden. They said that
We
life
started with evolution and did theory of special creation first. Right?
No, sir. That we did with previous class.
Oh, okay. Okay. Theory of abiogenesis. Okay, let's begin. Quick.
So they said that life could have evolved from pre-existing non-living organic molecules like proteins, and the formation of life was preceded by chemical evolution.
Yes. What does that mean? Preceded by chemical evolution?
Chemical evolution is the formation of organic molecules from inorganic molecules.
Yes.
Then S.L. Miller, he did an experiment on a laboratory scale. He made the early Earth conditions like reducing atmosphere that is low on oxygen and higher on hydrogen. It contains methane, ammonia, water, and H2, and high temperature and volcanic eruption and thunderstorms. So Miller created the early Earth conditions on a laboratory scale where he used electric discharge from electrodes in a closed airtight flask so that no contamination can come in, containing components of prehistoric reducing Earth atmosphere like methane, hydrogen, ammonia, and water. Then Miller found that there was a formation of organic molecules like amino acids. Then with this limited evidence, the chemical evolution part of the theory put forward by Hopper and Helden was more or less proven.
Yes. So this just proved the half part of it, right? Because they got organic molecules from inorganic components present in early Earth. Yes. Then
we discussed about chemical evolution that led to biological evolution. The first form of life should have been self-replicating metabolic capsules, which are not still non-cellular.
Yes, continue. So I also told you that it's possible, right? There are the evidences that it's possible for molecules to just assemble, right? Self-assemble. Yes. Okay. Are you there, Samira?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. That's it, right? And I asked you to go back. No, this was just for you to understand.
Yes,
about life. Okay. So today, basically, let's start from here only. So you understood, we have discussed that it's possible, right? It's possible for molecules to assemble together and form the lipid. It's possible for lipids to assemble together and form lipid bilayer. Okay. And someone is asking a question. Fatima. Yes, Fatima, please. You can ask a question, right? You can speak. So those who can speak, please ask the question, and everyone should ask the question in the class.
Sir, can all the molecules assemble or only few of them?
All the molecules, which molecules are talking
required.
about here? That are
all molecules that are required to make life.
So, for example, like all molecules do not assemble, okay, but they interact. They actually they bond with each other. Assembly is required for few. For example, proteins, it's a polypeptide chain. It's synthesized and then it can fold. It does not require assembly. You understand? Assembly is like where you have to, lipids require assembly. a lot of it assembled to form a membrane. Okay. Is it clear? All molecules do not require to be assembled.
Okay, but
Either
like
they are
all
folded or
molecules that are required for life, are they getting assembled? Is
are
that
they
proof?
getting assembled on their own?
No.
Like
Are all of them which are required getting assembled?
on their own, right? Like getting
Yeah.
assembled with the
Yeah.
help of something or on their own?
No, on their own.
So on their own, they don't need to assemble actually. Once you manage to make a very simple living system, after that, the living system can manage to do certain things. For example, you just need a membrane to make cytoplasm or substance which is inside separated from the outside. So now substances which are inside, it's the idea is that they can now react in a way where they can control their the product that is forming. So compounds react the same way they react in a beaker or in a flask. They also react inside the cell, and that reaction, for example, ATP. So we need, after the membrane, the next, there were thousands of requirements for making a living system. Energy was one of it, right? No living system can sustain without energy, right? And I told you that lipids do assemble and arrange, but the energy for rest of the other things, where does it come from? So there are other chemical reactions. Even before ATP began the energy currency, there must have been molecules that were giving energy to other molecules through a chemical reaction. Have you not, do you know about exothermic and endothermic reactions in a beaker?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yeah. So in a beaker also, you can actually generate heat. You put two liquids which were at room temperature, you touch both, then you mix. The moment you mix them, the vial becomes heated, right? As if someone just put it on stove. Now all that energy is coming from the bond. So it's possible that all these kind of reactions, very few of which we have been able to understand till now, because we don't have systems now, primitive systems. The most primitive system that can resemble is the mycobacteria or bacteria itself, or these virions, viroids, prions, etc. The simplest that we can study. So what exactly the system would have been in prehistoric Earth, we don't have it to study. We are hypothesizing it on the basis of logics that we can derive. That a membrane must have been required, because a membrane is a common thing between every living system from bacteria to a human being. So that have been crucial. It must have evolved. And then we see for evidences, can it evolve on its own? And we see, yes, it does. Then we go to answer the next question, energy constraint. Can it also get fulfilled through some of the other reactions which was possible on early Earth? Yes, that was there. Then we go on to ask, for every reaction or for every activity, we need catalysts, right? Because otherwise the reaction will require very high temperature, and living system cannot survive that high temperature. So did we have catalysts? So we realize, yes, there at one point of time there was RNA world, right? Small nucleic acids, which was found in Urey Miller's experiment only. They got formed from inorganic substances, and nucleic acids as a polymer can themselves act as a catalyst known as ribozymes, right? So in early life, ribozymes was not just a genetic material. RNA was not just a genetic material, but was also catalyzing reactions, which it also does today. Even in humans, even in us, there are very specific certain reactions that can only be catalyzed by ribozymes. So it again gives a proof, yes, it was possible to make reactions happen without enzymes. So it was possible back then as well. So you understand, this is how we deduce science on logic. Even if we cannot see, we do not know how. We have no photograph of any dinosaur, right? All we have is bones, and all we are doing is reconstructing them back on the basis of their bones and the joints in the bones. We know which bone can rotate in which manner. So if it is rotating, what muscles would have been there, and all this is deduced on the basis of what organisms are present today. So have you ever noticed that your hands fold in this direction, but your legs fold in the opposite direction, right?
Yeah.
Your legs do not fold in the same orientation your hand does. So your hand folds like this, but your leg folds opposite. And that makes us bipedal. That makes us how we can walk. But have you observed that for a cat or for a dog or for a horse or for a cow, all the legs fold in the same orientation, right?
Yes, sir.
But in class 11th, no, in class in this chapter only, I will tell you about homologous and analogous organs, right? I say that the hand of the tiger is equal to the limb of a human. It's same in anatomy. So if you see the arrangement of bones, it is same, but still how it moves depends on muscles as well. So we have knowledge about the motion. When the bones are attached in this manner, the motion can only happen in this direction. So muscles should be there to support this motion. That's how we reconstruct dinosaurs and also reconstruct their muscular structure. You understand, Fatima?
Yes, sir.
Does that answer your question? That we do not know, and we do not also need to know to say that early life was possible. But yes, we do not know about all the molecules. We don't know whether they could. We know about lipids for sure that they does, also about ribozymes catalyzing reactions, because most of the proteins which are present in humans, they are not present in bacteria. So they evolved. So we don't know how they evolved over time. But there is something. But the interesting part is, if I take the gene from the human and put it in the bacteria, the same protein can be synthesized in a bacteria. Now that's interesting, no? This is how we synthesize all our insulin. Bacteria do not produce insulin, right?
Yes.
Bacteria does not have diabetes. Diabetes or regulation of sugar is a concept in multicellular organisms, because we have a blood vascular system and we need to regulate the sugar level in that. If we do not regulate it, we get a disease called diabetes. So humans get diabetes, rats get diabetes, other mammals and higher organisms get diabetes, but bacteria does not. So it does not have that gene. But that gene from the human, if I cut out that gene through CRISPR, put it in bacterial DNA and just allow it to make proteins, it will also synthesize insulin, because the system does not know what it is synthesizing. Only once it is synthesized, then it can function, or it cannot function in the absence of it. So bacteria produces insulin for us, and all the insulin that we make today for therapies are not derived from animals. They are biochemically engineered in bacteria. Okay, so this also proves that we are all the same at the level of genes. If we were a special creation, our protein could not have been expressed in a bacteria, and the same protein, then we purify it from it, and as an injection we give it to a diabetic patient, and it works really well. Okay, so that's another proof of molecular evolution. Clear, Fatima and everyone?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Interesting.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very well. Okay, so good question. Thank you for the question, Fatima. So let's move forward, and let's take from, what was the last thing we did? Chemical evolution led to biological evolution. Yes. Now in today's class, let's start from like basically what happened after the theory of special creation got challenged. Did I also tell you about panspermia and other theories? Yes, right.
Yes.
I told you about panspermia, and did I also tell you about spontaneous generation is also done. Okay, very well. So now let's go to evidences. So you understood evolution, you understood the story, you understood what theories were there before and which theory we are going to support now. Okay. Now, what are the evidences? Everyone is talking about evolution, and just like some Fatima asked questions, everyone was skeptical at that moment. And it's good to be skeptical in science, because science is not a word of any wise saint or anyone. In science, everything has to be proven. If you cannot prove that thing, science will not believe in that, and science will discard that, even if it is in favor of science. Okay, so if you say that science is correct, just the statement does not make sense. You have to prove it that science is correct, and even scientists will ask for the proof that how do you say that science is correct? So I say it because this thing have been proved. Okay, so what are the evidences for evolution? Let's go to that. And when I say evidences, the evidence come from now, like today, we have ample of evidence, like lot of evidence, even more than what I will teach you here all the evidences for evolution cannot be studied in one chapter or even in 1 year. Okay, there are PhD people doing PhDs on evolution and the behavior, and they do it for 5-6 years to just prove one small thing, okay, which becomes a part of the evidence. What are the evidences for evolution? So first, let's begin with the very basic evidences. What do you think around you? So by now, if you believe in what, of course you believe, because whatever I have told before was logical. So if I ask you to find for proofs, where will you go and find?
Sir, I've heard about like babies who are still in the womb having tails, like human babies.
Human babies
Yeah.
having tail. We'll come to that. That's an embryological evidence. Yes, you are correct. But before that, there is something which is called fossils, right? So all the stories that we are making up as evolutionary biologists, someone has to go and prove that these stories are good. Darwin just said a lot of things. Darwin said that there were animals living millions of years ago. He just said it. Now, we cannot just believe it because he was Darwin. You know, Charles Darwin, grandson of Erasmus Darwin, the great philosopher. We do not take things on face value in science. We have to prove. First of all, there were different organisms. And second, they were living millions of years ago. You know, two bold claims. So yes, first thing that there were different organisms were proved when we started digging and we found skeletons of animals. Now these skeletons did not resemble exactly to any living thing which we see around. They were very different. They looked like reptiles, but they were very, very big. You know, it looked like a very big bird sometimes, you know, bigger than what we see around. So people started realizing that yes, there were organisms before and they were very, very big as compared to what we find now. And so those were fossils. And then you go to date it. And for dating, to know the exact time of any substance, any matter, we can do dating, element dating. So carbon dating and uranium dating are two techniques that are used. I will not go into the details of it, but I'll tell you the gist. So what happens is there are different isotopes of carbon, you know, radioactive and non-radioactive, heavier and lower. And over time, one isotope keeps converting into the other because every element has a half-life. You know about the concept of half-life? The more reactive the element is, the more radical the element is, radioactive the element is, the smaller is the half-life. So do you know about the concept of half-life from physics or chemistry? Yes or no? If you know, then it's good. If you don't know, then I'll tell you in brief. Half-life is the time till which it will stay stable and then it will degenerate into something else, or it will break down, basically, in simple language. Is it okay, everyone?
Yes, sir.
So half-life works like this. If there is 10 grams of a substance and the half-life is 1 hour, so after 1 hour, how much of the substance will be left? 5 grams, right? Simple. The rest 5 grams just got converted into, like, half-life is gone. Then after 1 hour, how much will be left?
2.5.
Yes, 2.5 grams. And then after 1 hour,
1.2.
yes, 1.25. So in a way, you will not see it exhausting completely, right? It will just become less and less and less and less and less and less, right? So to figure out how old are fossils, we do carbon dating and we get to know their age, or uranium dating if they are very, very old. And we actually got to know that yes, he was true. There were organisms living millions of years ago. So first, Earth is very old. And second, they were different. So they changed over time. There were reptiles, but not like the reptiles that we have today. So these reptiles, which were present millions of years ago, where did that go? So in case of dinosaurs, we know the clear answer that they became extinct, but not about all the reptiles. Many reptiles from dinosaurs' time, even before dinosaurs, are still living. And one of the examples, if you ask me, are your alligators and crocodiles. You know, alligators and crocodiles are known as living fossils because they are very, very primitive in their appearance and in their anatomy and physiology. Don't they look like to you like a very robust tank? It's very, like, they are hard. They have a hard, scaly covering. And these are some mighty beasts with lots and lots of bite force, not like the very delicate organisms that we see today. So if you take a crocodile, if you see a crocodile very closely, you will know that this is something prehistoric. It does not belong to this time. It does not belong to the kingdoms of human. Yes or no? And you see
Yes,
other
sir.
reptiles like our house lizard. So if I say house lizard is a relative of crocodiles, will you believe it?
Oh,
No, right? But it is. Okay. So
I
first
mean,
is
it does
random.
have some resemblance, but not like
Like, yes,
very significant.
yes. So more than that, the garden lizard, the calotes have resemblance. But even if you see there, they don't have a flat. So this feature of a flat jaw was present prehistoric. So, the idea is, I'll be telling you later on towards the end of the chapter, go and see for this fossil evidence. When we're talking about it, its name is Tiktaalik. Sounds like TikTok to me every time I say this. But the name is Tiktaalik. Okay. Go and see the fossil record. Fossils have been found, very clear evident fossil, and fossils of Tiktaalik. Tiktaalik was the first organism to have a flat snout with a nose like here and eye grooves like this. So it had a jaw like this. We are looking at it from the top. You understand? So this is where the mouth part will be, right? The teeth will be inside.
sir, it's T-double-A-I-L.
T-double-A-K.
No, sir, T-I-K, T-double-A-L-I.
T-double-A.
Yes,
Huh, okay. Cool. Okay. Tiktaalik. So Tiktaalik proved that, and this belongs, the fossils suggest that it came out of water. So it was at the junction of marine, like aquatic and terrestrial organisms, which proves that to come out of water and or to be to stay at the surface of the water, you need to have eyes not at the side but at the top, just like a crocodile. So crocodile's eyes is still at the sides, right? If you see it carefully, it's towards the side, right?
Yes,
But
sir.
have you seen fish? The most primitive fish are like this. They have one eye on this side and the other eye on this side. So there are two eyes. You cannot even see both the eyes from any angle. It's not possible. You understand? So you know
So
what
how
is
does
the
like things look like to fish? Do they see like double?
no? So first, we do not know that. We cannot answer that question because what we can do is we can just mimic. So if I put one camera, like make a model of a fish, an
Yes, sir.
electronic
Using
fish, and put
cameras.
two cameras, yes, of course. So you will not see the same object then, right? Because
Yeah,
on this
yeah.
side, if there's a tree, so we have a peripheral vision, but we cannot see what at the back, right? So if you have eye here and another eye here, so one eye is completely looking at the right and the other eye is completely looking at the left, then how do you still move forward? How do you look what is in front, right? What is exactly in
Yeah.
front of your nose? But so many fish cannot do that. Those who are very thin like paper fish, one eye here, one eye here, clearly cannot look what straight. So they always keep like they always swim like this. Okay, they see, but that helps them in seeing more. They can actually see both at the right and the left, which is the major part, and can see any predator coming from any direction. Do you understand? So now with this logic, if you start thinking, all the preys in nature have eyes on their sides. Cows, buffaloes, deer, all the preys, birds who are prey birds, all of them have eyes towards the side. One eye on this side, one eye on. So they cannot look exactly what's in the, just like we cannot see what's at our back, they cannot see exactly what is in front. A small area is always left. That's their blind zone. But a predator will not be that small that it can just enter from that blind zone and attack. So predator will be bigger than themselves. That's why they are the prey and something is the predator. So they do not go for very resolved eyesight. They go for sensitivity. They go for sensitive eye vision. Like anything that moves in the periphery, they will get to know. You understand?
Yes, sir.
And all the predators, cat family, dog family, humans, all the predators have eyes in front. Why? Because we are not afraid of being predated. So we don't need sensitive vision. What do we need instead? A resolved, focused vision so that we can track the prey and figure it out where it is, its motion, and can judge the distance and can predate it. You understand?
Yes, sir.
So that's always there. So the design of animal kingdom has some similarities. All the preys have one kind of eye placement, and all the predators have another kind of eye placement. The same, to come out of water, the side vision will not work well. Like a fish cannot come out of water or stay on the surface and still evade predation if it looks left and right. So eyes, as the first thing in evolution that they study, it started coming towards the forward, and Tiktaalik is the first fossil that actually proves it, that there were underwater organisms that started having eyes in front. Like front means on a flat skull. So the flat skull concept came, and that's where Tiktaalik comes in. So write about the fossil evidence. First thing, evidences for evolution of life. Evidences for evolution of life come from multiple areas of science. Multiple areas of science. First, fossil records. Fossil records. So what are fossils? Write down. Fossils are the remains of hard parts, bones, skeleton, made up of like bony or non-bony skeleton, scales, etc. Hoofs, horns, all these. So they're the remains of the hard parts of life forms. Preserved in rocks. And how did they reach there? They died, and then the rock formed around it. So it's not like there was a rock and it's not possible, right? If there's already a rock, a life after dying or an organism cannot just before dying enter the rock, right? So clear that these are the rocks which were not rocks back then. What were they back then? Soil, right?
Yes, sir.
They got hardened over time and now they resemble rocks. When we dig it from the ground, we get it as rocks, and we see that there is a fossil inside it. Now, there are many different kind of rocks, and just for you to know that only sedimentary rock contains fossil. Other are igneous rocks and metamorphic rocks like your marble and granite. They do not have fossils because, and the answer lies in their formation. They cannot sustain preserving fossils. Okay, only sedimentary rocks can have fossils because they are formed sediment by sediment, layer by layer deposition and hardening. Okay, so it's possible that something that died, the bones got preserved between two layers which get hardened over time to become rocks. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so write down. The cross section of the earth crust. The cross section of the earth crust provides an arrangement of sediments. Provides an arrangement of sediments one over the other. one over the other. One over the other. The deeper the sediment layer is, the deeper the sediment layer is, the older it is. So this is the logic, right? It's obvious. You understand?
Yes, sir.
And that, so clearly, if we find a fossil, and we have to know which layer we are getting it from, and accordingly we can also tell that if we found two fossils, which is relatively older than which, right? The one which are found in deeper layers are relatively older, and the ones which are found in upper layers are younger. So write down different aged rock, different aged rock layers, different aged rock layers. And sometimes it also happens that you find that rock in the on like just in the crust. You just dig for, let's say, 100 meters and you find a rock and there was a fossil. That may not always mean that it is the newest in terms of time scale. Can you tell me why? Why?
So can you repeat the question?
If I dig 100 meters in the ground and if I get a fossil, it does not mean that fossil was made very early, like very recently, sorry. Why?
Oh, the top part of the earth can be like gone due to like landslides or soil erosion.
Or the opposite is even opposite is more likely to happen. So the bottom layers could just have come up because
Yeah,
there are
sir.
tectonic plates. So when tectonic plates, you know what is the concept of tectonic plates? It is not a concept, it is true, but what is tectonic plate? You know that? The earth crust is like the shell of an egg. So earth is solidified from the outside and it is still molten from the inside. That's called the core and the mantle part of the earth. Mantle is semi-liquid, semi-fluid, but core is molten. It's liquid. And that is what comes out from the volcanoes, right? The molten magma. And what happens once it come out? It cools down and form igneous rocks, right? So now we know the source of igneous rocks. So that's why we know that no igneous rocks can contain any fossils. First, any animal that died in the lava will have nothing to be preserved. Yes. Second, it's coming from the core. It's not coming from and once it solidifies, then it's very difficult that another layer on the top of it and any animal in between will just get vaporized. So nothing will stay to become fossil. But the core is molten. So earth is actually like a raw egg. Only the crust is solidified. And that crust is not one single crust. It is dynamic. It is like pieces of solid crust floating on the molten magma. So they often encounter each other. They, what do you say? They collide with, yes, they collide with each other, and that pressure, what happens when two things collide? Look at my hands. So if they collide, to the pressure, this will form, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
And what are these? These are the mountains. This is how mountains formed. All the mountains, you will never see anywhere that there is just one single mountain. It's always mountain ranges, right? You can you can see one single hill like a top of something. It could be man-made also. But have you ever seen a one single mountain anywhere?
No, sir.
This
No,
tells
sir.
you about how mountains are formed. So mountains are also not something that just got created by someone that okay, here it will be one mountain. So let me put one mountain here. It is a force of nature. So when tectonic plates collide, that whole ridge it elevates. And currently, which is the tallest mountain range?
The Himalayas, right?
Himalayas, right? You know why they are the tallest? Because they are the newest.
Oh, it's because, oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they're the newest. So the newest mountain ranges are the tallest. When Himalayas were not there, then whatever is the second highest now would have been the highest ones. Over time, the mountains, they get wear and tear. So they become shorter and shorter. And it's not like in 100 years they will be shorter. It takes millions of years. But yes, Himalayas is the youngest, and that's why the tallest. Also, so look at this. This is the lower layer. Okay, the lower side of my palm is the lower layer of the earth. So this is where the fossils were created, right? Very, very early on. But when two tectonic plates collide, can you see now? The lower layers are actually, they gets risen even higher than the normal, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
if
sir.
I dig at the top of the mountain, I may find a fossil which actually is millions of years old, but when it was formed, it was at the sea, at the bottom of the sea. Yes or no?
Yeah.
So land keeps moving, like the elevation, what it is today was not the same forever. And the best proof of that is, there have been fossils of ancestors of whales found in Sahara Desert. Now, what was a whale doing in a desert? Came for a holiday? Enough of living in water, let's go for a dry holiday, and then got died by accidentally died because it forgot to bring a bucket of water. What was a whale doing in desert? Nothing. A whale never came to the desert. Sahara Desert was not a desert forever. Like millions of years ago, it was not a desert. In fact, what it was. Where do whales live? And where do you expect the fossils of whales?
Water, aquatic area.
Where in aquatic area? At the seabed, right?
Yes, sir.
If a whale dies, it will fall to the seabed, and the fossil should have been preserved there. So if I'm finding a very big fish fossil when I'm digging the desert, what does this mean?
That
The
place
desert,
was not- Yes.
the desert was once a seabed, right? And then somehow, due to tectonic plates collision, that whole continent just rose up. And currently, it is the highest elevated continent, Africa. Not currently, even before man came into existence, human came into existence, it was the highest already. So it's called the cradle of civilization. Africa is called the cradle of civilization of human, because that's where we all began from. We'll talk about human evolution at the very end, but before that, we have to cover a lot of proofs so that you are convinced that what we're going to study is true. So fossils, write down. Next point. Different aged rocks contains fossils from different organisms who lived and died in different eras or geological periods. Who lived and died in different geological periods. Okay. Now, some fossils resemble modern organisms. Whereas others are completely different. So a study of fossils proves, so how it is the evidence? A study of fossils proves that new forms of life have arisen or evolved at different times in the history of Earth. At different times in the history of Earth. Now, we still don't know how it happened. So that is the concept of speciation, new species coming from the old species. We have not reached there. So we will just think and behave like the scientists who think and felt. So you are allowed to ask any kind of questions. So again, this statement, it answers one question. In science, it always happens. Whenever you answer one question, you actually, start or give rise to at least 5 other questions. It always happens. So this says that fossils record suggests that older life forms constantly keep evolving or arising from earlier life forms. Now the question is how? How can a dinosaur, if I say that birds evolved from reptiles, now it's a statement. You should not believe it the way it is. How can you say that birds which look at a parrot, you mean to say that parrots came from dinosaurs, the kind of dinosaurs we see in Jurassic Park? Like, are you out of your mind? And then a scientist will say, yes, let me prove how. Okay. So all these questions will crop in your head. Please do ask. Okay. Don't just take anything for my face value. Just because I'm a little senior than you in science doesn't mean much. Means something, but doesn't mean much. Okay. So it means that you have to respect me as a teacher. That's all. Yes. So it still does not prove that how did different life forms come up, but it's enough to disprove the other theories which were pre-existing. So fossil record becomes the first kind of evidences that support evolution. Yes or no? And fossil evidences are also known as what is the study of fossils called, or study of earlier life forms called, which do not exist anymore? It's called paleontology. Yes, anyone was going to say the same?
I was gonna say it. Yeah.
Okay, good. And paleontology. And so fossils became paleontological evidence. Write down paleontological evidence. And people who study fossils and primitive life forms are called paleontologists. Yes, paleontologists. And it's different from archaeology. Okay, archaeology is about it's also prehistoric, historic, but it's about mostly the earth and the structure of it. When it comes to the life forms and different structures of life forms and different conditions, it's called paleontology. Okay, so this is the first evidence, is paleontological evidence, which comes through fossils. Is it clear, everyone? Any doubt, anything that you want to ask about the fossils? Anyone who's skeptical about fossils, or you all accept it?
Yes.
And it's good. Accepted, good to go forward, everyone?
Yes.
Sumaira, Kulsum, Fatima?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So next is what Matthew. So let's come to present. And do we have evidence? So this is from the past. Organisms that died, left their imprints in the soil. It's okay. But anything that we can get from today life, yes. Second is embryological evidence. Embryological evidences. Now for this, I first want you, let me figure out this. Do you all have NCERT?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, I'm just stopping the share for a moment. Okay, you cannot, I have to show you. Come to page number 129. Yes, this is what I wanted to find of your NCERT. Page number 129 of your NCERT. Everyone. Okay. Can you see the embryological support for evolution? Something like that written.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Please read that one paragraph till animals. Don't go for the last 2 lines, comparative anatomy. Just that one paragraph. I'm trying to pull it out for you. Okay. And I'll today show you something which I hope you find it interesting. Okay, done. Let me share the screen again. Can you all see the screen again? Yes?
Yes, sir.
This is the paragraph that I want you to read, please. And then I'll ask what you understand. This part. Take a minute, quick. Read it, or we can read it. Can anyone read it for me? Fatima, can you read it in the class?
Embryological support for evolution was also proposed by Ernst Haeckel based upon the observation of certain features during embryonic stage common to all vertebrates that are absent in adult. For example, the embryos of all vertebrates, including human development, a row of
Develop.
Human develop a row of vestigial gill slit just behind the head, but it is a functional organ only in fish and not found in any other adult vertebrates. However, this proposal was disapproved on careful study performed by Carl Ernst von Baer. He noted that embryos never pass through the adult stages of their animals.
Yes, so what does this mean to you? So reading this line, people can also misunderstand that there is no embryological support for evolution because this proposal was disapproved. But what was disapproved was actually approved for evolution. So Ernst Haeckel, upon his observation, said that there are many features which are common to all the embryos of all the vertebrates, okay, including human. So people asked what features, and he said that human embryos, being a vertebrate embryo and a chordate, humans, when they develop as an embryo, if you see a very early embryo, they will have gill slits, like in the region where neck will develop later on. Have you seen fish and their gills? So they have gills in this region, right? Just besides the eye, they have the gills. They breathe through gills. They don't have lungs, right? And when a human embryo starts developing, it does not have lungs. It has gill slits. And what kind of environment every embryo develops in?
Fluid filled.
Fluid filled. So a human embryo is just like a fish in water. The
Yes,
very
sir.
early one. Yeah, kind of.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That's why a baby uses the lung for the first time when it is born. And that's the reason. In fact, that's the reason why babies cry. Have you ever thought of why babies cry after they are born? When they are born? Why do they cry?
So
They can
because
laugh
for the
also,
first
right?
time-
Told
If
this
you,
in the class
if-
once before.
sorry?
You
Oh,
told
did I?
this in the class once before.
Then you remember?
Yes.
Because oxygen goes for the first time in their body.
In the
and it
lungs,
is
not in the body.
In the lungs. sorry.
Yes,
And it
and
is
lungs
very
for the
thin.
first time inflate. They were not using lungs when they were inside the mother, but they were alive, right? So it's possible to not use lung and still be alive. How? If I don't use my lungs, I won't be alive. But how is an embryo alive for 9 months without using the lungs? You can say that the nutrition is coming from placenta. Okay, it's fine. Like I can also put a glucose drip in my veins. I can also put a oxygen, like dissolve oxygen in that glucose. But will I be alive? No, I need to breathe to be alive once after I am born. But I was living in the womb without breathing for 9 months. Yes or no? And in fact, when the embryo started developing, it started developing gills first and not the lungs. But over time, the gills disappear and lungs start forming. And still it is not using the lungs. It is also not forming the gills or using the gills, but it is also not forming it is also not using the lungs, even if it is forming the lungs. So he actually said that humans have vestigial gill slits just behind their head, but it is only functional in fish. Okay. To which Carl Ernst von Baer said that what is not true is that all embryos resemble features of other adults. It's not true. All embryos have certain, because all the embryos never, so a human embryo never was of adult fish, right? So why should a human embryo resemble a feature of adult fish? That's where you are wrong. Actually, a human embryo is doing what it should naturally do. It is just it is not resembling any adult form of any other organism. It is just being what it is. So human embryos have to begin with starting gill slits, because all the ancestors of life, where did life evolve? Water. The first kind of organisms, multicellular organisms, animals, sorry, I should say, to come were fish, the ancestors of fish. And they used to breathe through gills, right? Exactly. So that's where it's so hardwired or encoded. Now let's go to this figure. This figure I have taken from a publication, which actually summarizes things pretty well for embryology as an proof of evolution. This is fish, and this is human, and this is everything in between. Salamander being an amphibian, tortoise being a reptile, chicken being a bird, pig, cow, and rabbit being mammals but non-primates, and then human being a mammal, which is a primate, bipedal, the most evolved. So it's whole evolutionary thing. Now, if you just see the stage 2 and 3 of these embryos, stage 2, you can actually say that each embryo is different, right? Oh yes, this looks like a fish because it has a tail, and it has gill slits here. Okay, very well. And it's also has a tiny fin. Can you see this tiny fin here? Oh, this is clearly going to be a fish. This is going to be something like a fish, but not a fish. What is this? We don't know, but this is something which is not a fish. Okay, this, we cannot say that it's tortoise for sure, but it is something different from fish. And then as we go forward, we can even if we cannot tell what embryo it is, we can say subtle differences are there. Yes or no?
Yes.
In the third
Yes,
stage,
sir.
you can clearly say that, oh, this looks like a fish, this looks like a amphibian for say, because it has legs, right? And this tail probably will go or will stay, does not matter, because but it has tail, it has legs. Oh, this looks like tortoise because it has a back shell developed, right? And this look like a bird because of this leg.
Beak
This look
also.
like a pig, beak also. Yes, very good. Beak start to develop. This does look like a pig. The tail is there and the hoofs are there. Yes, this look like something again, non-primate mammal, another non-primate mammal. If you cannot distinguish between the two, which is rabbit, which is cow, it's fine. But this look more like a human. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Ear is there. Can you see this ear and the hands with digits? And the legs are also not like animals. They are different, like human-like legs. But now let's focus on just this part, the first stage of every embryo. Can you distinguish which is going to become what?
No, sir.
Why is that? Now that's a puzzling question. Why a human embryo has gill slits, just like a fish, a salamander, a tortoise, a chicken, a pig, a cow, a rabbit. It also has the same head bump like every other embryo, right? Where the cranial
Yes, sir.
cavity will be formed. And more importantly, it has a tail. But humans don't have tail. So why does a human embryo has tail or gills? Because these are evolutionary characteristics. When organism evolved, some things were very, very hardwired in it. So tail is an evolutionary characteristic which may or may not develop in organisms depending on their adaptations. Okay, so humans never had tails. So the first ancestors of human, which we will study about in human evolution, I'll tell you they were tailless. Even the common link between human and chimpanzee were tailless. So chimpanzees also don't have tail, right? Apes, chimpanzees, and humans don't have tail, whereas monkeys, lemurs, rhesus macaques, they have tails. So they are distant from us. Okay. And the fact that we still, in our embryonic development, we retain this feature for quite some time. Even in stage 2 embryo, you can see that there was a tail. Now there is a limb bud also. So hands and leg bud is also there, but there is still tail. Over the time, it does not grow. It degenerates and it stops. And the last, in human, there is a last vertebral columns bone called coccyx, which is shaped like this. You see, this is the human spine and this is the head. There is this last bone which shapes like this. That's called coccyx. It's the ruminant bone. It's called the ruminant tail bone. but how do I believe that it's a tailbone? So first, embryological evidence. You can do a ultrasound. Now we can do it, and we can look at the first stage human embryo, and then we can do an ultrasound and look for a first stage fish embryo, and they look the same. Okay. And the most interesting part is they also are similar in size. It's not like that a human embryo will be big. The human embryo starts at a size of a rice grain. What is the size of a rice grain? Probably this, right? What I've drawn on the screen, depending on what screen you are using. If you're using a laptop, this is the size of the rice grain, right? This is how small a human embryo will also begin. And similarly, a fish embryo, the fish egg is also this small. So they all start very small. Over time, they develop depending on their gestation period. We have studied all of this in chapter 3. So this is first evidence. Second, even if you are not convinced, okay, I will not look at the ultrasound data. Don't try to fool me. Tell me in a human, how can you say that this is the ruminant tail bone? Okay, so we cannot prove that in human, but a recent paper have actually shown that the gene responsible for tail formation in mice is also present. The sequence is present in human as well, but the gene is not active now. It has a junk piece in between. So this is the gene. Remember, open reading frame from start codon to stop codon?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
And it
sir.
has to be read and then translated, and then exon introns splicing has to happen, and then a protein will be formed, a functional protein. All that knowledge is there.
Yeah.
So
Yes, sir.
in this case, we still have that sequence starting from something and ending at something, but it's not functional anymore because a chunk of it is actually a sequence which is a nonsense sequence which is in between. So if we remove this sequence and join these two together and then allow the translation to happen, the theory is, the hypothesis is that human embryos will develop a tail and the babies will be born with tail. There were some disorders, actually very rare disorders reported. I think this is what Matthew started with, that there were babies reported with tail-like growth of their spinal cord. Right, Matthew?
Yes, sir.
So, and because we are not allowed to take that baby sample, it's inhuman, unethical, and see, why he has tails. But because human experiments are not allowed, but the hypothesis is something might have happened that occurred that led to the embryo. It should have stopped this tail's growth at a moment, but the signal did not came or signaling did not happen. So this part stayed, but still it didn't develop. It just stayed as it is. So the baby was born with a small tail-like growth. But the point here is for it to develop and become a real tail, like monkeys have. And that can happen with this gene, but that we cannot do it in human. So how to prove it then, if we cannot do it in human? They did it in rats. So what they did, they took two parents, both have tails, and in their gametes, they just deleted this gene of tail, which they think was responsible. And when they fertilized in vitro, put back the embryo in the mother, the babies which were born from that embryo were tailless. So from tailed parents, you got tailless mice. The only change you did was you deleted a gene, which means that gene was responsible for making tail. Yes or no?
So,
Yes.
so what is the basic function of a tail? Like why it hasn't evolved yet?
Yes. What is the basic function of a tail? It depends in which organism you are asking. For monkeys, the basic function of a tail is it helps them in locomotion and in their habitat. If they have tails, they can just use that tail for balancing or gripping on a tree and then swing. You see them doing it, right? But if you're talking about a cow or a buffalo, you
Yes.
know that what they do with their tails. I have seen them removing flies, getting rid of flies.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's possible.
And I've also, what is a tail doing in predators? Like cheetah. Cheetah has a tail. What does a tail do there? When the cheetah is running very fast, the tail acts as a balancer. It helps in balancing cheetah at a fast speed.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And anything else? Any other
And
tail? Mice, yes, mice also have tails. I think the same thing. Tails help them in something. I don't know. Like in mice, I've never thought what a tail is doing in mice. It's just a rodent. It has tail. Squirrels have tails. Squirrels' tails also balances the squirrel's movement on trees. So it has some function, okay? And I sometimes think after watching Avatar, if humans had tails, it would have been a little inconvenient, but probably we would have some advantage. Imagine holding a cup with the tail and working with 2 hands on a laptop. Amazing, no? Not amazing. Okay, so I asked, how can you prove that humans are capable or they are linked to a rat in evolution? Just not by saying that, we had the same kind of sequence, which is 60% or 70% conserved. If we cannot do experiments on human, on which organisms can we do? And then we can say with some surety that if it is working here, it will work in humans.
Mice.
Primates?
Mice, so they already did, no, Fatima? They proved it in mice only. But still people are not ready to accept. So what they should go do now?
Primates?
Yes, Matthew.
Like monkeys?
Not monkeys. Monkeys already have tail. The whole question is that tailless organisms came from tailed organisms. So you have to do it in chimpanzees. They don't have tails.
Yeah.
And they're the closest cousins of us in evolution, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if we can manage by using the same manipulations in the gene and get a tailed baby, the first of its kind baby of a chimpanzee with tail, then we can say that if this is done in humans, it will work. We don't have to do it on humans, but it will also bring proof of evolution of humans, right? And not of their special creation. Do you understand? Because
Yes,
why it will be so cryptic that whoever created us left the tail gene cryptid in a cryptid form, that someday in future, human would need a tail, so they will develop CRISPR technology and then they will get their own tail. So I'm not giving them tail, I'm just giving tail to monkeys and other organisms that need it, but I'm not giving it to chimpanzees and humans, but I'm putting that gene in a cryptic form, in active form, so that later on when some scientists will figure out CRISPR, they will grow their own tails. So that's not the motive, right? We are a result of evolution, connected evolution in series, where we lost certain things and we gained certain things, right? So we lost tails, but we got more precision because our hands are the most, so I believe, like in my personal opinion, hands are the most beautiful products of evolution. Have you ever witnessed your hand? Look at your hands first, everyone, right now. Just look at your hand. You may not appreciate it as a design, but just look at it. No other organism in the animal kingdom have hands like us. If you look at the foot, you will find, okay, that foot is not that great. Chimpanzees have better foot than us because their thumb is very opposable in their foot also. Human foot is actually not a very good design. It's a very good design to keep us standing erect. But because of a problem there, we need to have a ridge in a human foot. Have you heard of the problem called flat foot issue? Flat foot
Yeah,
syndrome?
sir.
Yes, sir.
So if you do not have that arc in your foot, it becomes very difficult to walk. So it's a very, very precise thing just evolved for walking. That's why we have a limitation to be fast runners. We can go as fast as the fastest human, just 3-4 microseconds. But what Usain Bolt and other fastest runners have achieved, I don't think it's going to change very much. Like there'll be no runner in near future who will just run 100 meters in 3 seconds. But cheetah at its top speed can do that, right? At the top speed, if you see the speed, it is 150, 160 kilometers per hour. So it will not go for hours doing it, but it can reach that speed. Humans cannot. We have limitation with our foot. And we also cannot use our foot for anything else. Can you hold anything with your foot?
No.
Pencil.
You can hold a pencil with a foot. Great. Like if you train, you can, right? So there are people who do not have hands, so they become artists using their foot. They can even drive a car or feed themselves with the foot. But that's a very limited training adaptation that they have achieved, right? When they will have babies, their babies will not be able to do that right from the birth. You understand what I'm trying to say? So it's not genetically encoded, but what we can do with our hands is genetically encoded. There is a reason why we have this opposable thumb, and that makes we can touch all our fingers, right? This other organisms cannot do that well. Okay, and in case of chimpanzees, this thumb is even more to here. So if your thumb is away from your fingers, if you see birds third toe or the fourth toe is exactly opposite at 180. That's why they can make a clinging thing on the trees. You understand what I'm talking about? If not, let me draw it for you. So birds have this 1, 2, 3, and the fourth one is here. And this they can fold over and make a perfect circle to grip because all they have to do with the foot is grip when they sit on the bird or the barge. Yes. But we can write, we can do fine things with our hands, and it's amazing in evolutionary thing. Okay, anyway, so are you now convinced with these evidences, these pictures from different embryos, that yes, we have certain characteristic features which are evolutionary relevant, but not relevant for human? Yes.
No, sir, you complete the analysis.
Oh, so I was saying that some features that are evolutionary relevant for life forms, but not relevant to humans or to rabbits or to cow or to pig. So all of these starts with gill slits, but none of them have gill slits. Even the birds or the tortoise does not have gill slits. Yes, this is what I said. So convinced?
Sir, I was asking, like, can we see some traces of gill slit in a newborn baby? Like,
no, it degenerates much before baby is born. Even in the first month of pregnancy, the gill slits arise and then degenerate. For that matter, when our hands start to form, it forms like this, like a duck web. It is one structure. It's not like this. And I told you about this, right? It forms like this. So these cells here, they have to die. That's called programmed cell death, cell apoptosis. And that's where it opens. It does not open for a tortoise or for a whale at all, because they have flippers. So when a whale embryo develops, if the hands will open, then the flippers will be like this, right? Then they will not be able to do anything with that. So it does not open. The flesh stays there. That's why whales' hand become flippers and our hands become digits and fingers. So we cannot see any gill slits in newborn baby. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very well. Now write down embryological. After this evidence, after reading this paragraph, now write down embryology supports evolution as every organism's embryo. Organism means the concept of embryo only starts from vertebrate. So I mean the concept of vertebral column only starts from vertebrates in the embryo. So write down every vertebrate's embryo, for that matter. Every vertebrate's embryo looks similar and have some evolutionary conserved features.
So can you repeat from every vertebrate?
Every vertebrate's embryos look similar and have some conserved evolutionary features which may or may not be present in later stages, which may or may not be present.
So can I repeat that point?
This point again. Every
No.
vertebrate's
Okay.
Yes, every vertebrate's embryo looks similar. And what does I say after that? look similar
have some
and
conserved.
have some evolutionary conserved features, and have some evolutionarily conserved features that may or may not be present in later forms or later stages, which may or may not be present in later stages. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So when we say that which may or may not be present in later stages, we only can say that, okay, embryos have some conservative evolutionary features. But still, let someone says, I will not look at any ultrasound reports. I do not want to look at an embryo. Prove me in a human, that. So no, if someone does not wants to believe in fossils, things which, sometimes I've also heard people saying that, how do you know that this looks like a fossil? This is a bone. I think so. When paleontologists work, they have this very fine brush. So first they dig, they do the hard removal of soil and rocks. Then they use very fine brush to remove all the thing which is inorganic, like just the soil and the rock, and they only keep the organic part. Yes or no? So it looks like though they are carving that shape in the rock. Yes, but science is very patient. Science is like, okay, you don't believe in fossils, cool. You don't believe in embryologic evidences, cool. Let me give you more. So then, how can you prove that living organisms that live now, a human like me, can I compare myself with a whale? I don't want to compare myself with a whale embryo. Okay, let's say no one wants to believe that. Okay, I will compare myself with a whale, a living human with a living whale, and still can show you some conserved features in evolution. Will that work? Yes or no? So we are just going more and more robust into the evidences. Are you understanding why I am telling you like a story?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
third thing is comparative anatomy. This is what we do between comparative anatomy as evidence for evolution. And not only evidence, but comparative anatomy has led to evolution itself. Or we can say it has not led to, but it is a product of evolution itself. So comparative anatomy as evidence for evolution, that evolution happened, and that's where we get similar kind of anatomy. Now, if you have NCERT, I'm also giving you this homework. Come to page number 131 quickly. Page number 131, you can see examples of homologous organs in animals as a figure. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Now look at a human hand X-ray schematic and a cheetah's X-ray schematic. I'm sure I have done it in this batch. I can pull it off from this. Yes, this figure. Can you see this figure, people? Can you see this figure? Yes,
Yes, sir.
just focus on this part only. Now look here for the evidence. Look at the arrangement in a human hand first. We have this one single bone, which is in this region, the upper arm, and we call it humerus. If it is in the leg, we call it femorus, femur bone or femorus bone. Then we have in our lower arm, after our joint, in the lower arm, we have two bones. One is called ulna. This is ulna, and this is radius. Ulna and radius, right? Then we reach the wrist, this joint where we can move the hand. Okay, here we have carpals. So this group, this band which makes our wrist, this part is called carpals, and above the carpals are metacarpals. Okay, carpals and metacarpals. Before our digits start, this palm. Okay, it's carpals and metacarpals. Is it clear? Carpals, metacarpals. And then we have these fingers. Okay, these fingers are called phalanges. The bones in the digit, okay, they are called phalanges. And the digits, exactly, you can see how many bones are there by the line. So this is 1 bone, 2 bone, 3 bone. Yes, because at 2 places we can bend it. So 3 bones can be joined at 2 places, right?
Yes, sir.
So these are called phalanges. Now this is human hand. Now this is the interesting thing. Now if we are somewhere down the line related to other mammals, let's say we say whale. A whale does not have hands, right? But it is a mammal. So if it is a mammal, mammal should have some conserved anatomy and evolution. Otherwise, how did they come from the same pool and diverge later on? So I don't say, by saying this, that we came from the same pool, same ancestors. I do not say that humans were mammals at one point of time. This is a myth. Humans were whales. Humans were never whales. Whales were whales. But as mammals, we have conserved anatomy, which is, can you see this one single bone? It is reduced in shape, and that same is present in cheetah. Cheetah's limb is very much close to our foot. So I still believe the good example would have been to compare cheetah's leg with our foot and to compare whale and bat's hand with our hand, okay? Because we have both the functions. So one single, same is in the bat, divides into 2, like ulna and radius, same is here, reduced, and same is here in the bat. Then the carpals and metacarpals. So you see here the carpals and the metacarpals, here also the carpals and the metacarpals, very small. And then the phalanges. So here the phalanges are very, very elongated. Here also the phalanges are very, very elongated. But you can see there are 3, 1, 2, 3, joint at 2 places. Here also, this thing, these are not joints, they are joint actually at 3 places only, depending on the length in whales. But here also it's same. They have just made it in a confusing way. In tigers also there is 1, 2, and 3 joint at 2 places. So there is some conserved anatomy. This is called homology of anatomy, homology of organs. Homo means same, logy means the study, like they're basically coming from the same origin back in evolution, which means that no creation on the planet is a special creation. It's all evolved creation. Some are better. Cheetah are better runners. Whales are better swimmers. We are multitaskers and very intelligent as an organisms. Bat can fly as mammals, which very few other mammals can do. In fact, no other mammal can do as good as bats do. Okay. So fly, swim, run, hold, write, type, anything. Man are multitasking. But for all the features, the anatomy is conserved. It just depends. If you want to fly, you have to spread, you better more area, surface area. So the phalanges kind of become longer. If you have to run, you need stronger femur and ulna and radius, but you do not need very strong phalanges. So these are reduced and they become stronger. Is it making sense, everyone? So homology and analogy are 2 kind of organs that we will study about in the next class. And okay, one very important announcement. So before going to next class, we have to take a test of yours on the previous chapter. A test which is based on all previous years questions from the board. So it is a subjective test which you will be giving tomorrow in the class from chapter, I'm not 6th chapter, which we have finished just now. Okay, molecular basis of inheritance. So it will be a 1 hour long test, and there will be 2 markers and 3 markers. So please revise that, and no one will miss that test. If you are going to miss tests, then please don't do that. Okay, I don't want to put a punishment to that because I don't like penalizing. That's not a good system to penalize, and I don't want to force you, but I want to do it actively for your own learning. Okay, so tomorrow in the class there's a test. Okay, a 1 hour test instead of class. Okay, everyone. Fatima.
So what were the portions again?
Full chapter, 6th chapter complete. From all the topics I have, and all the questions, I have not made any question from my side. I've just taken all the questions from previous year's question papers, board question papers from 2010 to 2021. Okay, that whole 10-year paper set, I have taken different questions, actual questions which have come from all different topics. Okay.
So how many questions will be there?
There are 10 questions. So you get at least, you get a lot of time. My motive was not to put you under pressure and give you. So in boards, you have 3 hours test, or around you get 27 questions, right? So enough time to write. So you will get 1 hour and 10 questions, 5 2 markers and 5 3 markers, 25 marks total. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. And then you all have to send it to the WhatsApp group in a PDF format. Please make sure it's in a PDF format. Even if you cannot do it right away at the test, take 2-3 minutes, but convert it in a PDF. And if you cannot do it at any possible way, then write to Learnivio's group that you cannot do it in, you cannot convert it in PDF, and then send the pictures. But please, if you can convert it in a PDF before sending. Okay, everyone. So all the best for tomorrow's test, and I'll see you then.
Sir,
Please read. Yes, Arpit.
Sir, how much time will it take to complete this chapter?
This chapter, yes, this chapter, according to the plan, we'll finish it by the 3rd week. Because we get 2 classes each week, 2, 4, 6, 5. Yes, I'll finish it by the 3rd week. This is the time I took in the last class as well. Yes. With human evolution. Yeah. Okay. Okay, everyone. So I'll see you.
Okay, sir.
All the best. Bye-bye. Take care. And please read
Okay,
homologous. Sir. Okay, this you have to read before you come to next class. Homologous organs, analogous organs, and when you read this, then you read convergent and divergent evolution, because they both are a product of these, convergent evolution and divergent evolution. So these 2 evidences prove that convergent and divergent evolution happened, and it's still happening. So we'll discuss more on it, how and why, with some more evidences. Okay.